Across all continents, buried in stone and silence, lie ancient mysteries that modern science cannot explain. How they lifted 1,000-ton stones without machines, who built underground cities that no one claims, why so many ancient texts speak of knowledge that shouldn't exist. From Eridu, the first city that disappeared without a trace, to buried pyramids from 20,000 years ago, from metal tubes embedded in solid rock to rulers who supposedly came from the sky. Each discovery poses the same disturbing question. What if everything we know about the origins of civilization is wrong? Chapter 1. The City That Defied Time. In southern Iraq, buried under 6,000 years of sand and silence, lies a city that changed everything we thought we knew about human civilization. We're not talking about Babylon or Ur, or even the first Egyptian dynasties. We're talking about Eridu, a place so ancient that the Sumerians themselves believed it had been founded by the gods. And here comes the truly disturbing part. One day, they simply abandoned it. No war, no catastrophe, no explanation, as if an entire civilization had decided to get up and leave forever. According to the Sumerian king list, Eridu was the first city where kingship descended from heaven. But this wasn't just religious poetry. The Sumerians meant it literally. This was the cradle of civilization, the point where the divine and human first met. And they were right about something, because what archaeologists found here defies all logic. During 20th century excavations, researchers discovered something extraordinary. 18 temples built one on top of the other, each representing a different religious era. Imagine that. 18 layers of faith accumulated over millennia. Each new generation built their temple directly over the ruins of the previous one, as if the ground itself were sacred and could not be abandoned. Eridu's architecture was revolutionary for its time. The main temple, known as Abzu, wasn't just a religious building. It was a cosmic template, a design that Mesopotamians would copy for centuries. The ziggurats, those step towers that reached toward the sky, were born here, and the reason was profound. They represented the connection between the earthly world and the Abzu, the underground realm of sacred waters where the god Enki dwelt. But here's the detail that fascinates me. For more than 3,000 years, people kept building in this same place, generation after generation, century after century, without interruption. This is practically unique in the history of humanity. Most ancient cities moved, expanded, changed location. Eridu didn't. It was as if there were a magnetic force that kept people there. Eridu's geographical location was perfect. It was close to the ancient Persian Gulf coast, surrounded by fertile alluvial lands and connected to major trade routes. It was a cultural center where religious rituals, political power, and technological advances mixed. From here, Sumerian influence spread to cities like Ur and Uruk, and its legacy reached the Babylonians, Assyrians, and, according to some scholars, even biblical texts. Some academics have suggested that Eridu might have inspired the biblical concept of the Garden of Eden, and it makes sense. It was a place of incomparable antiquity, considered sacred, with a vital freshwater source, the Abzu, that was seen as the soul of life itself. But then, around 2000 BC, something changed. The city that had been the symbol of divine order began to fade. There's no evidence of war, no traces of fire or catastrophic flooding. The temple simply emptied, the walls collapsed, and Eridu's name survived only in legends. Theories about this abandonment are multiple. Some scholars suggest climatic changes that dried up vital water sources. As the region became more arid, agriculture would have become unsustainable. Desertification could have made what were once fertile lands uninhabitable. Others propose a spiritual explanation. In ancient Mesopotamia, it was believed that divine favor could migrate. A god could abandon a city, transferring his essence to another place. Perhaps Eridu was deliberately withdrawn when cities like Ur or Nippur gained prominence. There's also the political possibility. As rival states competed for power, Eridu simply could have lost its influence in the changing Mesopotamian political landscape. And then there are the more radical theories: massive collapses of underground water, seismic activity, even extraterrestrial intervention. But the truth is that no single theory completely explains Eridu's silent fall. What makes this abandonment so disturbing is its ritualistic nature. It wasn't violent or dramatic. It was as if the very soul of the city had been withdrawn. And to this day, no text, no tablet, no inscription explains what happened. Today, Eridu lies in ruins near the edge of modern Tel Abu Sharain in Iraq. Few tourists visit it, few locals speak of it, and yet it remains one of the most sacred sites in human history. The point of origin not just of buildings and kings, but of our very idea of civilization. Eridu was just the beginning. In the next cases, we'll discover that human history is full of erased chapters, lost technologies, and civilizations that seem to come from another time. And some of these stories could rewrite everything we think we know about our past. Chapter 2. The Sacred Texts That Concealed a Civilization. The oldest texts of India don't speak of gods floating on clouds. They speak of flying machines with precise technical specifications, of weapons that vaporized entire armies, of cities that shone as if they had electricity, and for centuries Western academics have treated them as religious fantasies. But what if they're not? The Ramayana, the Mahabharata, and the Vedas are not just spiritual scriptures. They are possibly the oldest historical records in the world. And if you read them with engineers' eyes instead of theologians, they tell the story of a civilization that achieved technological advances we're only beginning to understand. Take the Ramayana, attributed to the sage Valmiki. It describes the kingdom of Ayodhya with detail that rivals any known city of ancient history. But it doesn't stop there. It speaks of aerial vehicles called vimanas that could move in multiple directions, ascend rapidly, and travel great distances. These aren't vague, celestial chariots. They're descriptions with mechanical precision. The Vimanika Shastra, a Sanskrit text based on ancient knowledge, is even more specific. It describes various types of vimanas, their propulsion systems, control mechanisms, and even countermeasures used in aerial combat. It speaks of materials that reduce heat, mirrors for visibility in all directions, and anti-gravity effects. Aeronautical engineers who have studied these texts have been amazed by the depth of the technical language. But here's where it gets interesting. We're not just talking about texts. We have archaeological evidence that could support these stories. Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, the great cities of the Indus Valley civilization, show urban planning that has no parallel in their time. Straight streets, sophisticated drainage systems, multi-story houses, standardized brick dimensions, public baths. All this more than 4,500 years ago. And then there's the most disturbing evidence. In Mohenjo-Daro, archaeologists found skeletons that appear to show signs of sudden death, high levels of radiation, vitrified sand, conditions that some interpret as indicative of ancient atomic explosions. The Mahabharata contains chilling descriptions of weapons with the power of the universe that exploded with the intensity of 1,000 suns. Soldiers whose bodies were burned beyond recognition, hair and nails that fell out, birds that turned white, food that became inedible. If you didn't know these texts are thousands of years old, you'd think they were describing nuclear war. Critics argue that this is just metaphor, spiritual symbolism, but the consistency of the details is disturbing. The descriptions aren't vague or poetic. They're specific, technical, almost clinical. According to these texts, the Rama Empire not only achieved technological feats, but also suffered from its own destructive potential. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? It's as if history repeats itself. An advanced civilization develops technology beyond its moral wisdom and ends up destroying itself. The question nobody wants to ask is, if this civilization existed, where are its machines? Where are its factories, its blueprints? One possibility is that the Rama Empire had a catastrophic end. The Himalayas have preserved myth after myth of great floods, firestorms, and kingdoms that disappeared. If we accept that much of history is buried under layers of earth and erosion, it's not unreasonable to believe that entire civilizations could vanish without a trace. Another possibility is the destruction of knowledge. Oral traditions can be distorted, scriptures can be reinterpreted, and advanced knowledge can be lost in generations. Just as we once lost the knowledge to make Roman concrete, it's possible that the Rama Empire's technologies were absorbed into mythology, waiting to be rediscovered. Academic institutions have largely dismissed the Rama Empire theory as pseudo-history, but recent years have seen growing openness toward re-examining ancient sources through scientific lenses. From analyzing forgotten manuscripts to using ground-penetrating radar at sacred sites. What I find fascinating is that the texts describe a collapse. They don't speak of a civilization that prospered forever. They speak of one that rose high, developed incredible technology, and then destroyed itself. It's a pattern we've seen before and that we might be seeing again. What if the Vedas weren't just poetry, but records? What if Ayodhya wasn't just a mythical city, but one of the world's first capitals? What if the Rama Empire really existed and left clues we're only beginning to decipher? In an age where ancient DNA, satellite imagery, and deep Earth scans are rewriting what we thought we knew about early human history, maybe it's time to look at ancient texts with fresh eyes. Chapter 3. The calendar that predated civilization. In the desolate hills of Mpumalanga, South Africa, there's a circle of stones that shouldn't exist. Not according to everything we've been taught about human history. Because if the claims about its age are correct, then this site called Adam's Calendar was built 75,000 years before humans supposedly developed agriculture, writing, or any form of organized civilization. The discovery was completely accidental. Johan Heine, a South African pilot, was flying over the region when he noticed strange geometric patterns on the ground. From the air, what seemed to be just scattered rocks revealed itself as an intentional design, an irregular ring made of large dolerite stones placed in vertical position. When Heine partnered with Michael Tellinger, an alternative writer and historian, they began to investigate more deeply. What they found left them perplexed. Some of the stones appeared to be aligned with sunrise and sunset during solstices and equinoxes. A prominent central stone was aligned in such a way that its flat face pointed directly toward the position of sunrise on the spring equinox. But here's the controversial part. Using astronomical patterns and erosion analysis, Tellinger and Heine proposed that the site could have an astonishing age of 75,000 years. To give you an idea of how radical this claim is, that would be 7 times older than Stonehenge and 6 times older than Göbekli Tepe. The methodology they used is fascinating, though controversial. It's based on the movement of Earth's axial tilt, known as precession. Working backwards through thousands of years of precession, they claim to be able to identify a time when these alignments would have been most precise, around 75,000 BC. Mainstream academics vehemently reject this claim. Their reasons are straightforward. The dating isn't based on carbon-14 stratigraphy or any standard archaeological method. There are no associated artifacts, no human remains, no pottery, no tools, just stones. Critics argue that the supposed astronomical alignments could be coincidental or the result of natural erosion and stone displacement over thousands of years. Many geologists believe the stones could have cracked and tilted over time, invalidating any original orientation. But Adam's Calendar isn't alone in this landscape. Across southern Africa, particularly in Zimbabwe and South Africa, lie thousands of stone circles, many still buried under soil and vegetation. Some researchers speculate they were cattle enclosures or settlement boundaries, while others like Tellinger see a grander picture. Tellinger proposes that these circles were part of an extensive civilization, possibly powered by sound and vibration technologies far beyond our understanding. These ideas often venture into pseudo-archaeological territory where science meets mythology. The mythology includes the Anunnaki, extraterrestrial beings supposedly referenced in ancient Sumerian texts. Some theorists believe Adam's Calendar served as a landing site, energy node, or navigation tool for these ancient visitors. It might also have played a role in a prehistoric gold mining operation. Indeed, the region is rich in gold deposits, and mining activity in southern Africa dates back thousands of years. But linking this to alien interventions or 75,000-year-old civilizations without material evidence requires a leap of faith that many academics refuse to make. One of the central questions that generates debate is, if the site is really 75,000 years old, then where is the rest of the civilization that built it? In archaeology, signs of an organized society typically include domestic architecture, tools, roads, pottery, or burial sites. However, at Adam's calendar, such material evidence has never been found. This raises a bold and disturbing hypothesis. There might have once existed an ancient civilization that was completely eliminated by natural disaster, climate change, or simply erased by time. From a more grounded perspective, many academics believe the site might not be as ancient as claimed. It very well could be a ceremonial or astronomical site built by Iron Age communities. However, the lack of formal archaeological excavation has left Adam's calendar in a state of limbo, suspended between two extremes: a forgotten heritage site and a legend steeped in speculative myth. Regardless of its true age, Adam's calendar plays an important role in igniting public curiosity about ancient knowledge, lost civilizations, and the deeper origins of human consciousness. It forces us to re-examine the timeline of history, which has long been viewed as linear and complete. In a world where history is still largely told through a Western lens, Adam's calendar also has symbolic value as a representation of the cultural depth and enduring mystery of ancient Africa. It could be the oldest megalithic site on Earth, a relic of a lost world, or simply a misinterpreted pile of rocks. The answer depends on what you're willing to believe. Chapter 4. The Pyramid Buried Under a Mountain. In the forested highlands of West Java, Indonesia, there is a hill that guards a secret that could change everything we know about the history of humanity. The basalt stones scattered on its summit are just the tip of the iceberg. Beneath the layers of earth lies a massive man-made structure, possibly dated up to 20,000 years ago. If this is true, then Gunung Padang is not just a relic of the past, but the first real clue to a lost civilization. For centuries, local people considered Gunung Padang a sacred site, linked to legends of ancient kings and deities. But it wasn't until the 2010s that modern scientific investigations revealed something astonishing. Gunung Padang might not be a natural hill at all, but a massive man-made structure concealed by time. Studies that used seismic readings, ground-penetrating radar, and electrical resistivity tomography, conducted by Indonesian researchers, have painted a completely different picture of the site. Beneath what appears to be natural soil and vegetation lie layers of deliberately organized stones, forming a symmetrical multi-level construction that very much resembles a stepped pyramid. What's shocking is not just the size, but the level of organization and engineering sophistication. Vertical basalt columns, many with natural hexagonal shapes, were transported and carefully placed by human hands. These stones form walls, pathways, terraces, and possibly even underground chambers or corridors. As the layers go deeper, the architecture becomes more complex and expansive, with mysterious hollow spaces inside, potentially ritual rooms, dwellings, or underground sanctuaries. What's even more remarkable is that the overall shape of the structure strongly resembles a pyramid, not just in its stepped design, but in how each level seems to represent a different phase of development, almost like a timeline of an entire lost civilization. One of the most controversial aspects is the supposed age of Gunung Padang, which far exceeds that of any known ancient structure built by humans. While the Great Pyramid of Giza was built about 4,500 years ago, and Göbekli Tepe dates to approximately 11,000 years ago, carbon-14 dating of Gunung Padang's deepest layers has produced an astonishing result: between 20,000 and 24,000 years old. If this is accurate, Gunung Padang would not only be the oldest pyramid on Earth, but would also pose serious questions about our current understanding of the origins of civilization. According to traditional historical theory, humans in the Stone Age lived in small groups as hunter-gatherers without capacity for construction, social organization, or structured belief systems. But a structure as large and complex as Gunung Padang, if it was really built 20,000 years ago, would prove the existence of a highly organized society capable of division of labor, architectural planning, and abstract thinking, the fundamental traits of true civilization. Although this dating remains a topic of debate, the consistency of results across multiple testing methods makes it difficult to dismiss. If confirmed, Gunung Padang would not merely be an archaeological site, it would become the first physical evidence of a lost chapter in human history. Beyond its remarkable depth and age, the way Gunung Padang was built has also amazed researchers. The naturally prismatic basalt blocks were roughly but precisely cut, then stacked in interlocking load-bearing layers resembling walls, terraces, and platforms, a construction technique that required structural understanding and planning far beyond what is typically attributed to the Stone Age. Notably, some of the stones show signs of having been drilled, carved, or grooved, indicating that they were not only used to build, but were also intentionally shaped, possibly for symbolic, ritualistic, or functional purposes. Additionally, researchers discovered traces of a natural adhesive compound used between the stone blocks, possibly a form of ancient cement. If this is confirmed, it would represent a major technological leap compared to what we previously believed about prehistoric human capabilities. Since the discoveries at Gunung Padang were made public, the site has become the center of intense debate between two opposing camps: mainstream archaeologists and those who believe in the existence of a forgotten civilization. Supporters emphasize that the data from seismic studies, carbon-14 dating, and architectural features clearly point to a large-scale man-made structure, too obvious to dismiss. However, critics argue that geological analysis alone is not sufficient to prove human construction, and that the sampling methods used so far lack strict standardization according to international scientific protocols. The controversy remains unresolved, but despite the disagreements, Gunung Padang has already posed an important question. Do we really understand our own past, or have we only glimpsed the surface of a much deeper and buried history? It's undeniable that Gunung Padang opens a completely new perspective, that prehistoric humans once might have achieved an advanced level of development far beyond what we have ever imagined. If this structure was really built 20,000 years ago, it would not only topple the timeline of known civilizations, but would also suggest a brilliant chapter of human advancement that was eliminated by global cataclysms like volcanic eruptions, ice ages, or asteroid impacts. Chapter 5. The Rulers Who Came from the Sky. Buried beneath the shifting sands of ancient Sumeria lies a story older than memory, one that refuses to die. It speaks of beings not born of Earth who descended from the sky, shaped civilizations, and ruled for tens of thousands of years before vanishing in a cataclysmic flood. They were called the Anunnaki, and to this day their name resonates through stone tablets, forgotten ziggurats, and forbidden texts. According to the ancient Sumerian king list, humanity's first civilization did not begin with humans, but with powerful beings known as the Anunnaki. These were not just spiritual symbols. They were described as living entities who descended from heaven to earth and ruled for tens of thousands of years. Each ancient city, Eridu, Bad Tibira, Larak, Sipar, and Shurupak, was ruled by a different Anunnaki, suggesting a highly organized territorial system, almost like a divine federation of kingdoms. The ancient texts declare that kingship descended from heaven, implying that these beings may have literally come from elsewhere, bringing knowledge and authority to rule early humanity. Archaeological evidence from the Ubaid and Uruk periods reveals complex settlements and massive ziggurats that still stand as stone remnants of an era when humans and gods may have truly coexisted. And then they disappeared without a trace. Why? And who were they really? What distinguishes the Anunnaki narrative is its incredible chronology. The pre-flood kings are said to have ruled for thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of years each. King Alulim supposedly ruled Eridu for 28,800 years. The numbers are not symbolic. They are stated with specificity and consistency across tablets from different sites. Academics interpret these durations as symbolic, perhaps mythological exaggerations, but others suggest that these gods were not limited by human lifespan. Were they immortal, or simply advanced beings with access to biological longevity beyond our understanding? The myth of a global flood is one of the most persistent cross-cultural memories in human history, found in the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Bible's Book of Genesis, Hindu texts, and even Andean legends. It seems to point to a traumatic planetary event, an erasure and a rebirth. In Sumerian tradition, the gods grew tired of humanity's noise and disobedience. Enlil, the chief deity, decreed destruction by flood. But Enki, sympathetic to humanity, warned a mortal, Ziusudra or Utnapishtim, to build a great vessel. Did the flood mark the end of Anunnaki rule? Were they destroyed? Or did they withdraw, perhaps to the heavens from which they came? Many ancient carvings from Mesopotamia depict the Anunnaki holding mysterious objects, divine handbags, wrist devices, or items that resemble modern watches. Some images even show them interacting with symbols, energy, or tools that resemble technical instruments. This has led many to speculate that the Anunnaki were not just spiritual deities, but beings who possessed technology far beyond that of humans at the time, possibly even ancient extraterrestrials. They may have introduced knowledge of agriculture, astronomy, metallurgy, and the first writing systems. Supporters of this theory often point to the sudden leap in knowledge in Sumerian civilization around 3000 BC, when advanced cities, irrigation systems, legal codes, base 60 mathematics, and even accurate astronomical maps appeared almost simultaneously. Could this be the result of a knowledge transfer from non-human entities that accelerated human development? This is the fundamental crux of the entire Anunnaki narrative, a mystery that has never been completely unraveled. Who were they really? Were the Anunnaki merely symbolic representations of natural phenomena created by ancient imagination to explain an incomprehensible universe? Or were they indeed distorted memories of a species that truly existed, now erased from the official timeline of human history? Some modern academics argue that the Anunnaki were purely theological constructs, a symbolic model used to legitimize royal authority and social order. However, what makes this theory unconvincing is the striking consistency in details. Names, roles, behaviors, and sequences of disappearance, all repeated across different cities, eras, and languages. In every legend, they come from the sky, descend to earth, guide humanity, and vanish after a catastrophe, often a great flood. The Sumerian king list simply states, "Then the flood swept over everything." From that point, kingship was handed from the gods to humanity. A clear and definitive line was drawn, as if someone had closed the curtain on a forgotten era. Skeptics often argue that there is no concrete archaeological evidence proving the Anunnaki were real entities. No bones, no spaceships, no definitive artifacts. However, in the field of ancient history, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, especially when dealing with stories that are over 6,000 years old, worn down by time, war, and cultural censorship. Some theorists suggest that such evidence may have once existed, but was sealed in museums, lost during conflicts, or even deliberately destroyed to avoid controversy. Many alternative academics turn to forbidden texts like the Book of Enoch, Gnostic scriptures, or the Dead Sea Scrolls, which all speak of beings who once taught humanity, ruled over early civilization, and then mysteriously disappeared. Ancient civilizations always looked to the sky when speaking of the origins of knowledge. The gods always came from above, and in every tradition they speak of a great flood that cleansed everything. Why are these stories so remarkably similar? We call them Anunnaki, but perhaps the Egyptians called them Neteru. The Maya knew them as Kukulkan. The Hopi remembered them as Kachina. Perhaps these are all just different names for the same buried memory. Are the Anunnaki merely the product of human imagination, or are they the sealed memory of an ancient truth? Chapter 6. The Metal Tubes That Defy Geology. In the arid and desolate mountains of western China, far from any trace of ancient human settlement, lies a phenomenon that has left scientists speechless. Ancient metal tubes embedded deep within rocky cliffs, organized in a network as if they were once part of an intentional transmission system. They are known as the Baigong pipes, But that name alone cannot capture the disturbing mystery that awaits to be unraveled. The Baigong pipe system was discovered in one of China's most remote areas, Mount Baigong, near Lake Tosun in Qinghai province. This is a high, arid region with virtually no evidence of ancient or modern human settlement. Strangely, some of the metal tubes protrude from the side of the cliff near a large cave, while many others are embedded deep underground or submerged beneath the lake. The isolated location has led many to question whether ancient humans could have even accessed this place, let alone built something there. However, what puzzles scientists even more is the structure of the tubes themselves. They are not just fragments of broken natural iron. Many segments are perfectly round with consistent diameters, and some appear to be interconnected as part of a larger system. The Baigong pipes vary enormously in size. Some are only a few centimeters wide, while others reach more than 40 centimeters in diameter. What is especially striking is that they are not randomly scattered. They follow clear directional paths. Some sink vertically into the ground like geological drilling cores, while others run horizontally through bedrock layers, forming an organized network. This organization suggests a specific geometric logic, distinctly different from common natural formations. If these pipes are indeed man-made, then their creation and installation would have required a high level of technological skill, from selecting raw materials and processing metal to shaping consistently round tubes and embedding them in solid rock. This raises a provocative question. Could there have once existed an ancient civilization in this place, one that history has not yet recognized or recorded? Numerous reports note that the pipes are severely corroded, with some almost fused to the surrounding rock, making it extremely difficult to determine their age. Conservative estimates suggest they may be thousands or even tens of thousands of years old. However, according to the known historical record, no civilization in the Qinghai Highlands at that time would have possessed the metallurgical or engineering capabilities to produce such structures. What most puzzles scientists is the chemical composition of the Baigong pipes. When analyzed in various laboratories across China, the samples gave bewildering results. While they are composed primarily of iron-based alloys, they do not completely match the profile of natural iron ore found in the area. According to a report from the Chinese Institute of Geology, the pipes contain an unusually high percentage of iron oxide, along with silica, calcium carbonate, and even trace elements like aluminum and sodium, materials not commonly found in natural iron deposits. This suggests that the pipes underwent some form of processing or alloying rather than being crude mineral products. Even more astonishing, approximately 8% of the material found in the pipes could not be identified, according to a report cited by Xinhua News. These elements of unknown origin have led some researchers to ask, could these pipes have been manufactured using a technology that is completely unknown to us today? A technology capable of manipulating materials, creating specific alloys, or even synthesizing unusual compounds. Adding to the mystery, in various pipe samples, the outer layers appear to have dissolved and fused with the surrounding limestone, indicating that they have been buried for a long time and subjected to geological processes lasting thousands of years. If these are purely natural formations, how do we explain their precise tubular shapes? And if they are artificial, why don't their alloy compositions match any known ancient metallurgical technique? Faced with the strange nature of the Baigong pipe system, the scientific community is divided into two opposing camps. Some geologists believe the pipes are a rare natural phenomenon, similar to fossilized tubes found in other locations. According to this perspective, the pipes may have formed when mineral-rich groundwater seeped through decomposing tree roots or rock fissures, gradually solidifying over thousands of years into tube-like structures, a process known as ferric tube formation. However, many skeptical researchers argue that this explanation fails to explain the geometric precision, the relatively uniform lengths, or the unusual alloy composition found in the pipes. They also point out that some pipes are embedded deep within the bedrock in clearly intentional directions and even lie beneath the lakebed, places where natural conditions would be unlikely to produce such formations. After international media began reporting on the Baigong pipes in the early 2000s, the cave area housing the system was suddenly completely closed by Chinese authorities, citing environmental protection concerns. However, this move did not alleviate public curiosity. Instead, it ignited even more suspicion that something unusual might be hidden there. Many independent researchers and archaeology enthusiasts believe that if the site were made accessible and studied transparently, the discoveries could potentially reshape our understanding of ancient history and long-lost technologies. To this day, no international archaeological team or independent scientific body has been allowed to conduct a comprehensive study and publish peer-reviewed findings on the Baigong pipes. Current information comes mainly from domestic media, semi-official sources, or brief studies. However, even this limited data has ignited lasting curiosity. So the question remains, are the Baigong pipes a strange product of natural processes, the legacy of an unknown civilization, or something beyond what science can currently explain? Chapter 7. The Underwater City Without History. At first glance, Lake Fuxian in Yunnan Province, China, is nothing more than a stunning natural wonder. Its waters are deep, clear, and serene. But beneath this mirror of tranquility lies something that defies all expectations. A city-like complex of massive stone structures, crafted with a precision that seems far beyond their time or place. No ancient text describes it. No known culture claims it. And yet, the stones are there, arranged in geometric perfection, whispering the story of a forgotten world. Discovered in 2001 during sonar studies and underwater expeditions, the structures rest approximately 7 to 40 meters below the lake's surface. Sonar images first revealed what appeared to be rectangular and pyramid-like formations. Subsequent dives confirmed the existence of large stone platforms, steps, walls, and terraces, all appearing to be artificially carved and aligned with an architectural intentionality that can hardly be attributed to nature. Some of the stones measure more than 3 meters long and weigh several tons. Even more surprising, many are stacked or organized with a precision that would be difficult to replicate, even with modern underwater technology. But beyond the sheer scale, what truly puzzles researchers is the design language of these constructions, which seems to belong to no known Chinese civilization. Among the ruins, divers found a stone column more than 2 meters tall engraved with what appears to be a humanoid face, flat, expressionless, and stylized like a mask. The shape of the face bore no resemblance to any iconography of known Chinese dynasties or local tribal cultures. The head was large, the eyes hollow, the mouth absent. Some scholars suggested it vaguely evoked the massive carved heads of the Olmec civilization in Mesoamerica, though the connection is, of course, speculative. Other structures included what appeared to be large platforms, possibly once supporting buildings or monuments. Some had shallow carvings or repetitive geometric patterns, not random scratches of erosion, but potentially symbolic motifs or even language like glyphs. The repeated use of symmetry and alignment suggests a developed understanding of engineering aesthetics, measurement, and design. Perhaps the most astonishing aspect is that no known Chinese culture, from the Neolithic to the Tang dynasty, used this architectural style, especially in underwater construction. The structures seem to predate not only the ancient kingdoms of the Yunnan region, but also any known urban development in the area. This has led to speculation that the builders may have been members of a now lost civilization, one that existed thousands of years ago, potentially at a time before recorded history in this part of Asia. The challenge for archaeologists lies in the lack of cultural context. In most cases, ancient ruins can be linked to pottery fragments, burial practices, linguistic traces, or mythological references. But the Lake Fuxian site provides none of that. There are no inscriptions that can be reliably translated, no organic remains that have been subjected to carbon-14 dating, and no known legends in Chinese history that clearly describe a city being swallowed by the lake. Some researchers have attempted to link the ruins to the city of Yuyuan, a settlement recorded in Han Dynasty documents as having sunk without a trace. but Yuyuan's dating places it around 200 BC, while some experts believe the Fuxian structures could be much older, possibly 4,000 to 12,000 years old, based on stoneware patterns and sediment layers. If the most extreme estimates are accurate, that would place these ruins at a time well before the Xia dynasty, which is considered the first Chinese dynasty dated to approximately 2000 BC. This pushes the Fuxian structures into the realm of prehistoric Asia, where almost no large-scale stone architecture is known to have existed, and certainly nothing submerged. Several clues support the idea that the structures were not built by any civilization we know. Unusual angles and terraces. Some stone slabs were organized at precise right angles, forming stairs or ramps. This is rare in early architecture unless there is a strong cultural or ritual purpose behind it. Monolithic stonework. Unlike traditional Chinese stonework, which often uses smaller stones or bricks, the Fuxian structures rely on massive blocks, a trait more commonly associated with Andean or European megalithic architecture. Absence of binding mortar. Many blocks were fitted tightly without binding material, requiring sophisticated understanding of weight distribution and carving precision. Tool marks and engravings. Some surfaces exhibit patterns or lines that hint at tool use far beyond what local cultures at the time were thought capable of, and in some cases resemble symbols rather than utilitarian carving. In the absence of historical connections, alternative theories have taken root. Some suggest the structures are remnants of a prehistoric civilization eliminated by a sudden natural disaster, possibly a flood, glacial melting, or even a tectonic event that raised water levels drastically. Others have pointed toward cosmic or alien explanations, especially due to the humanoid face carving and the isolated nature of the site. There are even fringe theorists who claim this could be part of a network of ancient cities, possibly connected to Atlantis-type myths spanning multiple continents. One might expect such a potentially civilization-changing discovery to generate global academic interest, but the Lake Fuxian site has remained relatively obscure, with little official funding, few follow-up expeditions, and minimal inclusion in archaeological conferences. In many ways, the underwater ruins of Lake Fuxian are like a script without a key, beautifully carved, intentionally placed, but completely illegible. They challenge our understanding of early civilization in Asia and remind us of a profound truth. Our timeline of history is built not on certainties, but on what has survived and what we have dared to question. Whether they are the remnants of Yuyuan, a forgotten people, or a lost chapter of human evolution, the stone structures beneath Lake Fuxian still wait, silent, submerged, and stubbornly unresolved. Chapter 8. The questions that redefine our history. Here we are at the end of a journey that began in the sands of Eridu and ended in the depths of Lake Fuxian. 8 archaeological mysteries that science cannot fully explain. 8 sites that challenge everything we've been taught about the history of humanity. And the question that arises is inevitable. What else don't we know? Because when you look at these cases together, you start to see patterns that are impossible to ignore. All these sites predate official history. All show evidence of knowledge or technologies that shouldn't have existed. And all were abandoned or disappeared in ways that no conventional theory can completely explain. Think about it. Eridu, humanity's first city, abandoned without explanation after millennia of continuous construction. The Rama Empire, with its precise descriptions of flying machines and nuclear weapons, turned into mythology. Adam's calendar, potentially 75,000 years old, built tens of thousands of years before we developed agriculture. Gunung Padang, a 20,000-year-old pyramid buried under a mountain. The Anunnaki, rulers from the sky who disappeared after a global flood. The Baigong pipes, made of materials we cannot fully identify, embedded in rock in one of the most remote places on Earth. And the Lake Fuxian structures, built with precision that rivals modern engineering, but with no connection to any known culture. Coincidence? I doubt it very much. Academic resistance to these ideas is understandable. The current paradigm of human history is linear. We started as hunter-gatherers, developed agriculture, built cities, invented writing, and gradually became the advanced civilization we are today. It's a clean, orderly narrative that fits perfectly in textbooks. But what if history isn't linear? What if it's cyclical? What if humanity has reached heights of knowledge and technology before, only to collapse and start again? Global myths certainly suggest this. Stories of great civilizations that rose high, developed incredible powers, and then destroyed themselves. Conventional archaeological methodology has its limitations. When something doesn't fit the established framework, it's often dismissed or ignored. If there's no pottery, no tools, no familiar cultural context, then it must not be significant. But what if we're looking for the wrong clues? What if some ancient civilizations worked with materials that don't preserve well? What if they use technologies we don't recognize? What if they deliberately erased their traces? Or if natural disasters eliminated them so completely that only puzzling fragments remain? New technologies are changing the game. Ground-penetrating radar is revealing buried structures we never knew existed. Satellite imagery is identifying patterns in the landscape that are invisible from the ground. Advanced chemical analyses are detecting materials and processes we cannot explain. Ancient DNA is rewriting the history of human migration. Deep Earth scans are revealing hidden chambers in sites we thought we knew completely. And each new discovery seems to make the past more complex, not less. What all these mysteries have in common is that they force us to ask uncomfortable questions. How many times has civilization begun? How many chapters of human history have been lost? How many technologies have we developed, lost, and rediscovered? And perhaps the most important question, are we destined to repeat the mistakes of the past? Because if there's one thing these sites teach us, it's that civilizations, no matter how advanced, can disappear. They can abandon their most sacred cities. They can lose their most sophisticated technologies. They can be erased so completely that they become myths. Ancient texts from around the world speak of cycles, golden ages that end in catastrophe, followed by new beginnings. The Hindus speak of yugas, the Greeks of golden, silver, bronze, and iron ages, the Maya of multiple creations and destructions of the world. What if they're not just metaphors? What if they're memories? Official history tells us we are the first advanced civilization on Earth, that we have reached unprecedented heights of knowledge and technology. But what if it's not true? What if we are just the latest in a long line of civilizations that have risen and fallen before us? These 8 mysteries are not just archaeological curiosities. They are reminders that the past is full of secrets we are only beginning to discover. They are evidence that human history is much more complex, much older, and much more mysterious than we have ever imagined. And maybe, just maybe, they are warnings. Warnings that even the most advanced civilizations can disappear if they don't learn from the mistakes of the past. The question that remains is, are we listening?